early in the season have a lot of questions to be answered. We're going to try to get some of those answers with Jimmy Kempski, PhillyVoice.com. He covers the Philadelphia Eagles as they get ready to play the Washington Redskins on Sunday, we anticipate. But, Jimmy, is there any – I know there's some contingency plans, but have any of them been laid out so far? We do know that the game will not be in Philadelphia. That is something we can confirm?
You got me. I don't know. I really don't know anything about, what they plan on doing if the hurricane is going to, preclude them from playing on Sunday. I know that the point was made that they both share the same bye week, which is week 8, and I think that's a detriment to both teams because it basically ruins both their bye weeks on the season. And for the Eagles in particular, that'd be a serious blow because they play the Cowboys the following week. So, when the schedule came out, that was viewed as a pretty big advantage that the bye week would be week 8, and they play the Cowboys the following week. There's plenty of time to prepare for them in what will be, you mentioned before I came on how, the Cowboys are the lead in the division right now, and I think clearly they're the Eagles' biggest, their primary competition for the NFC East this year. So, that's a good game to get after your bye. And if they have to play the Redskins that week, kind of ruins all that.
Yeah, I would agree. That would be a tough spot for them, to practice all this week, anticipating the game, and then have to move it to week number 8, I believe, is where that bye week would fall for the two teams. Jimmy Kempski is with us here. This team, this Washington team, I think most people look at them as the third or the fourth of the 4 NFC East teams. But one look at their defense anyway, Jimmy, they've given up the least amount of points in the NFC East out of those 4 teams. Is this a defense that the Eagles should be concerned with, specifically the way that Philadelphia's offense has struggled?
Yeah, they've been surprising on defense is the best way that I can put it. And they changed over a lot of guys on that defense. They signed a lot of guys to their defensive line, and I think those guys have been playing well in the run game. I really haven't gotten a good chance to dig deep on them and really get a good look at their game so far. The one game that I did watch of theirs was when they played the Dolphins week 1. They really outplayed the Dolphins for really the entirety of that game, and they only lost because their special teams units have just been they're really just the worst in the NFL. I mean, over the last 5-10 years, they've really just had the worst special teams units in the NFL. I don't think anyone's really close. Like Football Outsiders does like a special team study every year, and they're always in the bottom 5. On better years, they're in the bottom 10. But they gave up a punt return against the Dolphins to really kind of change that game. But yeah, they've been a little bit better than I've expected them to be. But at the same, but as always, I do think they're still kind of the doormat of the NFC East. They don't really have, obviously, they don't have a quarterback at this point with Robert Griffin III being benched, and Kirk Cousins just really throws just far too many interceptions for them to really be successful. But I think that the Redskins do still have some issues on the back end of their secondary. I think you can expose them in the passing game, although obviously that does not match up with what the Eagles' strengths have been so far this year.
Yeah, Jimmy, now you go back to Cousins, and if you go to that game last year here in Philadelphia, he threw for over 400 yards. Is that a product that Cousins, can throw out a good game from time to time, or is that a product of the Eagles' secondary last year?
That was a rare game that Cousins played well, and I actually thought he played well. I don't even know that it was so much just all on the Eagles secondary. I mean, obviously the Eagles secondary last year stunk. They gave up the third most pass plays of 20 plus yards in NFL history last year. So everyone kind of played well against them, but. Cousins, I thought he made some really strong throws down the field in that game and really kind of had a very surprisingly good performance. So I wouldn't just put it all on the Eagles secondary. I think he can come out and have some occasional good performances, but for the most part, I think you're going to get a guy that's going to make questionable decisions here and there, and most teams have been able to capitalize that in the form of turnovers.
Questionable decision seems to be the name of the game at that position in the NFL. A lot of people questioning not Jimmy Kempski's decisions, but Sam Bradford's. And one of them is the inability to throw the ball down the field. And it seems like a lot of questions after 3 weeks, Jimmy, is it the scheme or is it Sam? Sam seemed to say, well, they're not calling plays down the field. I mean, is that something that Chip's telling us that, well, we don't think he can throw down the field? Is that the receivers? How do you read into the Eagles' deep passing game basically being non-existent so far?
Well, it's, clearly been terrible. I mean, they haven't. And he's right. They haven't attempted many passes down the field. He's only thrown, by my count, it was either 5 or 6 passes that actually traveled more than 20 yards in the air past the line of scrimmage. They've only attempted 5 or 6, but they haven't completed any. They've completed none of those. They have no receptions of 40-plus yards. They have just 7 receptions of 20-plus yards on the season, and that's, of course, because the ball isn't traveling 20 yards in the air. A lot of that is due in part to receivers getting yards after the catch. You look back to 2013, the Eagles had 80 pass plays of 20-plus yards. That was an all-time NFL record. And when you look at that 80 pass plays, in the following year they had 63 of those, which was still, good. It was actually third in the NFL, but, a significant drop-off from 2013. And then this year they're on pace for 37 of them. So they're going from 80 to 63 to projected to get 37 of them. So, like I said, they haven't completed any with footballs in the air over 20 yards. And then for balls in the air over 11 yards or further, where the ball travels more than 11 yards or further past the line of scrimmage, Sam Bradford is, and I have the numbers here in front of me, just was able to pull them up, 7 for 25, 153 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, quarterback rating of 26.3. So, he can talk about the Eagles not calling plays down the field, but even when they've not only gone, forget throwing deep balls, even when they've just tried intermediate passes, he just really has not been effective at all. And, I've put together a few film breakdowns of some throws that he's made, and he's just, the only way to put it is that he's just been wildly inaccurate this season.
Yeah, and I don't know how much study you did on him after the Green Bay game or in the second half of that Falcons game. Where is the difference in what he's doing in terms of missing guys, or are the plays just not there? Because it seems that there are plays to be made. He was very effective in the Green Bay preseason game and in the second half of the Falcons game, yet it seems that has been the exception and not the norm.
Yeah, you look at that Green Bay game, and there were 2 throws that he made. Well, first of all, he threw 10 passes in that game, and all 10 of them were on the money. You couldn't ask for better ball placement on any one of those 10 throws. Just absolute perfect performance on his part. 2 of those throws in that game were on corner routes to Jordan Matthews. And what he did on those corner routes was he put the ball in a place where only Jordan Matthews could get it. Jordan Matthews being 6'3", he used his height to his advantage, where he kind of threw the ball high and outside toward the sideline where it's not complete, it's out of bounds. And those balls were just absolutely right on the money for Jordan Matthews. He's had a number of chances to complete, the same kind of throws in that Packers game as he had so far this season. And the example that I gave to Jordan Matthews, they threw that, they ran that pattern. I believe it was either the first or second pass play against the Cowboys, and he threw that ball 5 or 6 yards short. The defensive back turned around, hit the defensive back in the legs. If he had turned around sooner, it's an interception. But the pass was just not anywhere close to Jordan Matthews. And if you look at how he threw the ball against the Packers in the preseason and how he's throwing the ball here in the regular season, and it's just night and day. And I really don't see a difference in the pass protection. Clearly in the preseason you're going to face defenses that are giving you more vanilla looks. And in the regular season, you're going to see more exotic blitzes and stunts and twists and that kind of thing. But for the better part of the season, while the offensive line has struggled mightily in the run game, they've been really good in pass protection. Sam Bradford has had plenty of clean pockets to throw from. He just hasn't been accurate. So when you ask me what the difference is between in the preseason and what it's been in the regular season, I don't have a clue. I really just don't have a good answer for it, and it's an answer, or it's a question that I've gotten quite a bit, but I really just have no idea because I don't see much of a difference on what he's facing from opposing defenses. Because again, like I said, he's had clean pockets to throw from. He's had time to throw. He's just not making the throws.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of people would ask, well, was he not mentally ready? I mean, why would he be mentally ready in a game against Green Bay and the second half of Atlanta, but the majority of the other times that be the case? So it's kind of hard to say, well, is he still scared to get hit? I know people have indicated that that's a little bit of the issue, is that he doesn't want to take that hit, but he's been hit a couple times.
Yeah, I couldn't say. I mean, I don't know if anyone has like inside information, like he's actually said that to somebody, or that's what people in the locker room say. I have no idea, but I wouldn't necessarily based on from what I've heard or just my opinion on it. That's not where I would go. But again, like I said, I don't have an answer for it because I'm just looking at a quarterback that had a clean pocket in the preseason and made throws. I'm looking at a quarterback that had a clean pocket in the regular season and is not making the throws. And it doesn't matter. You can get hit in the preseason too. So I don't understand what it is. If it's just the moment, the spotlight, just doesn't perform under pressure. I really have no idea what it is. But again, like I said, he was accurate in the preseason and in the regular season. He's just not.
Well, let me ask you this then. 2013, as you wrote over at PhillyVoice.com, Jimmy Kempski's with us, 80 plays. 2014, 63 of over 20 yards. They're only on pace for 37. Is that the quarterback, the coach, or the wide receiver weapons that they possess currently and last year different from 2013?
Actually, Chip, I don't know if he read my article, but he addressed it in the press conference today, where he said that in 2013 they'd broken NFL records for the most explosive plays in NFL history, and he said that they just aren't seeing the same coverages now that they were in 2013. So, I mean, that's one way. I mean, that's one answer. I don't think it's limited to that. I think certainly NFL teams have sort of. I think it's reasonable to think that defenses around the league have not necessarily caught up to what they're doing because their playbook really isn't all that complicated. It's just the pace and the tempo with which they run it. So I don't know, maybe defenses are a little more ready for that tempo and just ready for what the Eagles kind of bring to the table offensively. Obviously, the Eagles, cut Deshaun Jackson after the 2013 season. I think certainly that's a factor because he was a big part of those big plays. He's always good for, I think he had 25 catches of 20-plus yards that season in 2013. And a number of them that were over 40 yards. So Jeremy Maclin, of course, in 2014 had a number of big plays. They don't have him anymore, although obviously they didn't get rid of him. He left on his own volition to go play for the Chiefs. But, I think, the drop-off in talent at the wide receiver position is one thing. Obviously the run game was a lot better in 2013. They were number one in the NFL in rushing yards that season. So when the run game's working, it's a lot easier to throw the ball. They were not as good in the run game last year, and then certainly this year they've been awful in the run game. They're a little bit better in Week 3 than they were in Week 1 and Week 2. So, I mean, there's all kinds of different things that you can point to on why the deep passing game isn't the same as it was in 2013. And I can kind of go on for a lot longer on more reasons why it's not. But, I think the ones that I touched on there are probably the primary things.
Well, and the one thing that you said that really sticks out is they cut Deshaun Jackson and got nothing in return. Maclin left on his own accord, and the Eagles, had a chance to bring him back. They chose not to, whereas Jackson, and obviously he burned him last year in the game. And I always said with Jackson, he can't be your number one wide receiver. He shouldn't be a guy that catches 80, 90 balls, but you could look at him as a number one playmaker. He should have 55 catches, and half of those, are giving you big plays. I think the problem was people viewed him as he's got to be Calvin Johnson or Larry Fitzgerald or Julio Jones, and that's just not who he is. But they're clearly, to me, Jimmy, missing that guy.
I don't think there's any question about it. I mean, they're missing him on the field. Obviously, part of the reason that they let him go was, the off-the-field stuff and the quote-unquote culture that they're trying to cultivate there in the locker room, which is sort of an unquantifiable kind of thing. But, yeah, I agree. I mean, you have a guy who and he actually, on the 25, and I think I have the number right there. I think he had 25 catches of 20-plus yards in that 2013 season. And I think that on any drive, and he didn't have two in any one drive, so they're all on separate drives. On those 25 drives in which he had to catch 20-plus yards, they scored like 141 points or something like that, and they scored on every single one of those drives except for one in which they missed a field goal. So anytime he had a big play like that, they wound up scoring on that drive.
Wow.
And drives that they've scored on this year, and it's next to, I mean, there just aren't many. I mean, they just really haven't scored on many drives. They've had a lot of drives, and they haven't scored on many. In fact, they score, I think it's 1.5 3.1 points per drive, which is awful. It's actually dead last in the NFL right now. It's just they're just not scoring on for the number of drives that they have with the fast-paced tempo offense that they run, and the defense has done really a tremendous job of getting off the field quickly this year. They just have not capitalized on the absurd number of drives that they've had.
Yeah. I would say, if you agree with me, if the offense had Deshaun Jackson and Aguilar on the outside and Matthews in the slot, that we probably wouldn't be talking about a lot of the issues that this team has right now.
That'd be a scary wide receiver trio, no question about it.
Yeah, Jimmy Kempski's with us, Philly voice. Let's look at some of the other things. Kiko Alonso, it almost seemed like he was done, and then I was a little surprised that they announced that he'll be back. He said he'll be around Friday, and then he won't play, obviously, this week, but it could be is the timetable about a month for Kiko?
Yeah, that was the report that came out initially when after he met with Dr. Andrews, and Dr. Andrews said that his ACL was intact. I think it was Ian Rappaport of NFL.com reported that he would be back. He was going to have to rehab it for a month and then should be back. But fortunately for the Eagles, and a lot of people did not like the draft pick of Jordan Hicks in the third round of this year's draft because they were already loaded at inside linebacker with Michael Kendricks and D'Amico Ryans and the aforementioned Kiko Alonso. And I think a lot of people thought that when they drafted Hicks and they actually signed D'Amico Ryans to a contract extension and then, traded their starting running back for Kiko Alonso, they thought that, okay, well, does that mean the end for Michael Kendricks here? And, all season we speculated that Michael Kendricks was going to be traded or whatever might happen to him. But it turns out that inside linebacker depth and Jordan Hicks, who has been awesome for a rookie through the first 6 quarters of his NFL career here. He's got I'm just going to pull these numbers off the top of my head, but he's got 17 tackles. He's got a sack. He's got a forced fumble. He's got a fumble recovery. He's got an interception. He's got a pass breakup. And he knocked out Tony Romo for half a season. So for 6 quarters for an NFL, for a rookie in Philadelphia, that's pretty darn good. And I think the loss of Kiko Alonso for however long he's out is sort of offset by the way that Hicks has played.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Hicks has been excellent, and you're right. People were scratching their head at whether he was going to get an opportunity or not. There was just a lot of depth there, and everybody thought Kendricks would be traded and how Alonso would fit in and D'Amico, would he be ready? And now we're seeing, hey, they made a good move. They added a lot of depth there. The other spot they added a lot of depth is at running back. Give us the update on Murray and your take, Jimmy, on how this running back situation could look on Sunday.
Yeah, I saw somebody say that, and I was at the NovaCare complex today. I was out today. I was a healthy scratch. But I had heard somebody say that in speaking with DeMarco Murray, that Murray wasn't committing to playing to Sunday, so I don't know if he'll be a go or not. But like you said, they have good depth there. They brought in Ryan Matthews as well, and obviously they have Darren Sproles. So Ryan Matthews ran the ball well. I mean, people have been questioning now, is Ryan Matthews a better fit for the Eagles offense than DeMarco Murray? And I don't know. I mean, it's really tough to say. I'm kind of waiting still to see what DeMarco Murray is and how he fits into this offense, because I don't think we've seen it yet. Because every time he touched the ball the first 2 weeks, he had 3 defenders all over him. There was on a rare occasion where he did have some room to run, he rattled off like a 17-yard run and got called back because of a holding penalty. So really, for me, I haven't seen what DeMarco Murray can be in this offense. So I don't want to jump to say that Matthews is a better fit, although certainly I really did like the way that Matthews, that fumble aside at the end of the game that I'm sure gave everyone a heart attack, I thought that he ran really well in that game against the Jets last week.
Yeah, but realistically, I don't mind seeing Murray get the 25 carries, but I'd like to see Matthews get the 11 that Sproles got last week instead of basically the way we saw it the first 2 weeks. And I know that was tough because they weren't running the ball, but it seemed like Murray was just going to dominate the touches. And hey, if you use Matthews for the first couple quarters, grind it out late in the game with Murray, a fresh guy who doesn't fumble as much, because that's been something that Matthews has had problems with, fumbling the ball. I think there's a better way that they can utilize these 2 guys than when we saw in the first 2 games.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to look at it, where you have the fresh guy coming in and you can kind of batter, tired defenses in the second half. And I think that's what a lot of people sort of expected from the Eagles heading into the season. Not necessarily, in the order that Matthews would wear him down and that Murray would come in and clean up. I think kind of people saw it the other way around to begin the season. But certainly that's the way when you have what I call and what a lot of other people call the best running back trio in the NFL, and obviously you put the Eagles' fast-paced, up-tempo offense on top of it, and defense was wear down. I thought that the Eagles would be a prime team to be able to really wear down teams in the third and fourth quarter and really kind of rack up the rushing yards. Obviously, we haven't seen that. They got behind really early against the Falcons. They just could not run the ball whatsoever, as we saw against the Cowboys. And the Jets game was just weird. I mean, where, especially in that second half, where even though they were running the ball okay, just for whatever reason they couldn't pick up, those short third downs and on the punting a lot. But yeah, I mean, I certainly think that they're a better team with Murray than without him, and they should be because of the amount of money that they paid Murray. But you want those running backs. You want to have a few of them that can run the ball, because then you can do that to opposing defenses in theory, although we haven't seen that just yet.
Everybody, he's Jimmy Kempski, PhillyVoice.com for more on this game, and at Jimmy Kempski on Twitter, where tonight, obviously, Jimmy was a healthy scratch, so he should be 100% to give you all the information that you need for this game, and we appreciate him always jumping on board with us here on the Sports Fest. Thanks, pal.
Appreciate it, guys.